Welcome to Talk Talk, the podcast where we dive deep into the topics that matter most to family-owned businesses, entrepreneurs, and anyone navigating the complex world of business leadership. I'm Tiffani Carter, and Rory and I are excited to bring you insights, strategies, and discussions that reflect the very essence of what we do here at ActionCOACH of West Texas. Hi, Rory.
How you doing, Tiffani?
I am fantastic.
So what are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about recruiting.
Recruiting.
Okay. Kind of when's the right time to recruit? What does that look like?
Well, I'll give you that answer. You should always be recruiting.
Okay.
So you should.
How do I do that?
Regardless of whether you have an open position or not, you should always be looking for top talent. The best talent is probably employed somewhere else. And so part of that is just being on the lookout, building those relationships, having those conversations. I've shared the story hundreds of times, but the best recruiter that I have ever met was not in recruiting, had nothing to do with HR. He was our chief merchant at HEB. His name was Steve Harper. Steve always had a list or always had a Rolodex of people that he had met somewhere along the line. And when he needed a new talent or to bring somebody in, he already had someone kind of to go down the list and say, I think Tiffani would be great for that role. He could pick up the phone and call. And so we should always be recruiting. And I think that's the first answer. Just as we think about that, is we should always have a list of people that are top talent that we should be thinking about saying, if I could get them on the team, where would they be? How would I do that?
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks for the story. The story always helps. So Jim Collins talks about when in doubt, don't hire recruiting. He also talks about when you need to make a people change act. One thing that we talk about here at ActionCOACH is hire slow and fire fast. Not necessarily the trend we see when we're working with business owners and leaders.
And those are both really hard to do. Hiring slow, especially when you have somebody leave or two people leave, you're a couple of folks down in a shift or down. You find somebody that's applied and you go, I just need a warm body in the role. I will tell you, and I've said this for 20 years, maybe longer, that hiring is one of the most important decisions that you can make. You will reap the benefits of making a great hire long after that person is gone, but you'll pay the price for a bad hire long after that person is gone. And so you've got to make that choice of hiring slow so that you make sure that you get a great culture fit on the team. We also talk about when I post a position out there on the internet, I put it on Indeed, I put it out there somewhere for people to post for that position. I put all the technical requirements on there. I don't put characters and behaviors and things like that in that job posting. And so I think the resume or what they bring to the table technically is just, it's their entry into the game, but not necessarily into my business. And so I've got to have that conversation about what's inside here, what's inside their heart, right. And make that choice. And so we've had a phrase that we've used for a couple of years anyway around here, just that we should hire hearts, train smarts. And so I need to hire that heart first. I can train most of the technical skills unless it's a position that requires certain certifications. But for most roles, it's truly, I need to hire the heart first and then train the smarts.
I love it. That is something we say a lot, and love that piece of it. So what would you say to the business owner or business leader that is down a couple people on a shift? What can they do in the meantime? What advice would you give them so that they don't pull the trigger on a bad hire?
I think Jim Collins has it right? If you're in doubt, if there is a question in your mind about whether this is the right person or not, then you need to slow down. It doesn't mean no necessarily, but how do I vet them in an additional way? How do I introduce them to additional team members to see what that culture fit is? do I actually follow up on their references and have that conversation and say, this is the environment. How do you think that person would work in that role? And so I think you've got to go a little bit slower, do a little bit more due diligence. Because, man, it hurts really bad when I make a bad choice. And we know the statistics, and they're crazy, but hiring managers make a bad decision more than 50% of the time. And the average hiring manager makes a decision in the first 4.5 minutes of an interview. So really all I'm making that decision on is the resume that you submitted. And can you engage me in a conversation for 4.5 minutes or less? And if so, then I think you're going to be a good hire. That's crazy, but that's what we do. And so,
yeah,
the slower we go in that process, the longer we extend that, the better we're going to know the person that we're interviewing, the person we're having that conversation with.
Agreed. I had a thought when you were talking about right in the first 4 minutes, which, by the way, I've been guilty of myself.
Yeah,
and
right
I was
here.
myself good at it, right? But really, we're basing that decision on the same amount of time that we both came from fast food, that someone is spending with a cashier placing an order. We're making in that amount of time. When we put it in that type of perspective, it is, it's a wow statement.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think in today's environment, well, in any environment, I would go back to we should always be recruiting. Always looking for talent and realizing and acknowledging the fact that the best talent probably has a job somewhere else. So we should be looking for them on an ongoing basis. We should hire hearts and train smarts, and we should slow the hiring process down and not get over anxious, not be impatient, because hiring somebody is hard, but getting rid of somebody that is not a good fit is even harder. And so how much work do you want to put on yourself would be a question that you should ask.
Yeah, all great tips on recruiting. So thanks for joining us today on Chalk Talk, and we will see you next time.